Here's what nobody tells you about being a bodyguard. The real danger isn't the bullets, or the knives, or the crazy stalkers. It's the moment you realize you've been protecting the wrong person all along. My name's Ryan Carter, I'm 46 years old, and I spent 15 years thinking I was one of the good guys. Turns out I was just another piece on someone else's chessboard, and I didn't figure it out until it was way too fucking late. I worked for Premier Security Solutions. Sounds fancy, right? We handled politicians, CEOs, celebrities, anyone with enough money to worry about someone wanting them dead. I was good at my job. Really good. Clean record, stellar recommendations, the kind of guy agencies fight over. Linda Martinez, my handler, used to joke that I was bulletproof. Ryan Carter never loses a client, she'd say. Made me feel invincible. But here's the thing about feeling invincible: it makes you stupid. It makes you think you can tell the difference between right and wrong just by looking at someone's bank account. Rich people hire bodyguards because they have something worth protecting, right? That's what I told myself for 15 years. That's the lie I built my whole fucking career on. The Vincent Hayes job started like any other. Routine protection detail for a tech mogul with government contracts. Seemed straightforward enough: board meetings, business dinners, the occasional charity gala. Hayes was charming, professional, even bought me coffee and asked about my family. Course, I didn't have much family left to talk about, but he didn't need to know that. Point is, he seemed like a decent guy. They always do. 3 weeks into the assignment, everything went to hell. And the worst part? I still wake up every morning wishing I'd just walked away that first day. Because now I know what Linda meant when she said I was bulletproof. She didn't mean bullets couldn't touch me. She meant I was the bullet, and I just didn't know who I was aimed at yet. Sometimes I think about calling in sick that morning, about all the tiny choices that led me to that warehouse. But mostly I just think about the blood, and how it looked exactly like mine. I should have seen the signs from day one. But when you're pulling down 6 figures protecting some tech billionaire, you don't ask too many questions about where the money comes from. You just show up, do your job, and cash the checks. That's how it worked at Premier Security, and that's how I liked it. My routine with Hayes was clockwork. Pick him up at his penthouse at 7:30 sharp, black sedan with bulletproof glass and run-flat tires. He'd always be waiting in the lobby with his morning coffee and that $1,000,000 smile, reading something on his tablet. "Morning, Ryan," he'd say, like we were old friends. "Sleep well?" Always asked about my sleep. Weird detail to remember, but it stuck with me. We'd hit his office first, 42nd floor of the Meridian Tower, corner office with windows overlooking the whole city. I'd sweep the building, check with security, position myself outside his door while he took meetings. Standard protocol. Nothing fancy, nothing suspicious. Just rich guy doing rich guy things. Hayes treated me different than other clients. Most of them barely acknowledged I existed. I was furniture with a gun. But Hayes would bring me lunch, ask about my weekend plans, even invited me to his daughter's birthday party. Course, I declined. Professional boundaries and all that shit. But it was nice to be treated like a human being for once. The other guys at Premier were jealous. "Cushy assignment," Mike Torres would say. "Easy money babysitting a tech geek." And it was easy money. Hayes never went anywhere dangerous, never had any credible threats, never even raised his voice. His biggest risk factor was probably carpal tunnel from all that typing. I'd been doing this job for 15 years, and Hayes was exactly the kind of client you pray for. Predictable schedule, minimal security concerns, fat paycheck. Linda kept telling me I'd hit the jackpot. "Milk this one as long as you can, Ryan," she'd say. "Guys like Hayes don't come around often." 3 weeks in, I was already planning how to stretch the assignment. Maybe suggest some additional security measures, convince him he needed protection for his family too. I had bills to pay, an ex-wife who still wanted alimony, and a retirement fund that needed serious help. Hayes was my golden goose, and I was gonna protect that goose with my fucking life. But that's the thing about golden geese, sometimes they're just painted yellow, and you don't realize it until the paint starts peeling off in your hands. Sometimes the thing you're protecting is the exact thing you should be running from. The warehouse meeting wasn't on his calendar. That should have been my first red flag, but Hayes had a reasonable explanation for everything. "Last-minute supplier issue," he said when I asked about the detour. "Industrial district, about 20 minutes out. Nothing fancy, just need to smooth over some contract problems." I'd done warehouse security before. Boring as hell, usually just standing around while suits argue over shipping schedules and quality control. Hayes seemed relaxed about it, even cracked a few jokes during the drive. Asked me if I'd ever considered getting into tech myself. You've got the mind for it, Ryan. Detail-oriented, good under pressure. Made me feel pretty good about myself, actually. The warehouse was one of those generic industrial buildings, concrete and steel, no windows, loading docks in the back. Place looked abandoned except for 3 cars in the parking lot. Hayes told me to wait by the entrance while he handled business inside. Standard protocol when clients want privacy for sensitive negotiations. I positioned myself where I could watch the exits and the parking lot. That's when I heard the first scream. Not a shout, not someone raising their voice in anger. A scream. The kind that comes from somewhere deep in your gut when something terrible is happening to you. I've heard that sound before, during my military days, and it never means anything good. My hand went to my weapon automatically. Hayes had been inside maybe 10 minutes when the screaming started. Then voices, muffled but angry. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was all wrong. This wasn't a business meeting going south. This was something else entirely. I should have called for backup right then. Should have followed protocol and contacted Linda, let the agency know the situation had changed. But Hayes was my responsibility, and whatever was happening in there, he was in the middle of it. So I moved toward the side entrance, trying to get a better angle on what was going down. Through a grimy window, I caught a glimpse of the interior. Hayes was standing over someone on the ground, couldn't see who from my angle, but they weren't moving. 2 other men were with him, and one of them was holding what looked like a crowbar. Hayes was talking, gesturing with his hands, completely calm. Like he was discussing the weather. The person on the ground tried to sit up, and that's when I saw the blood. A lot of blood. Way too much blood for any kind of business meeting. Hayes said something to one of his guys, and the crowbar came down again. The screaming stopped. I stood there frozen for maybe 30 seconds, trying to process what I'd just witnessed. My client, the guy who bought me lunch and asked about my sleep, had just overseen someone getting beaten to death. And he looked about as concerned as someone swatting a fly. That's when Hayes looked up and saw me through the window. For just a second, his mask slipped. The friendly smile was gone, replaced by something cold and calculating. Then he smiled again and waved, like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just watched him murder someone. Hayes came out of that warehouse like nothing had happened. Same easy smile, same relaxed posture, even made small talk about the weather during the drive back. I kept waiting for him to explain, to tell me what I'd really seen in there. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe the guy was just injured, not dead. Maybe I'd misunderstood the whole situation. Everything go okay in there? I finally asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Just business, Ryan. Sometimes these supplier negotiations get heated. But we worked everything out. He was looking out the window, completely calm. You know how it is with these blue-collar types. They get emotional about contracts. Blue-collar types. The guy I'd seen bleeding on that warehouse floor. Hayes was talking about him like he'd been a difficult customer, not someone who'd just been beaten to death with a crowbar. I wanted to press him, ask more questions, but something in his tone told me to drop it. When we got back to his office, I called Linda. Had to report the incident, right? That's what the handbook said. But when I tried to explain what I'd seen, the words came out wrong. There was some kind of altercation at the warehouse meeting. I told her. Violence. I think someone might have been seriously hurt. Linda's response should have been immediate concern, questions about police involvement, whether Hayes was safe. Instead, she was quiet for a long moment. Ryan, are you sure about what you saw? These warehouse environments can be confusing. Poor lighting, weird angles. Sometimes things look worse than they are. Linda, I saw blood. A lot of blood. And Hayes was what? Involved in violence? Ryan, come on. You've been protecting this guy for 3 weeks. Does he seem like someone who'd hurt a fly? Her voice had an edge to it now. Look, I'm sure whatever you saw has a reasonable explanation. These business disputes can get messy, but let's not jump to conclusions. Gaslighting. That's what they call it now, right? When someone makes you question your own eyes, your own memory. Linda had been my mentor for 5 years. I trusted her judgment more than my own sometimes. And she was telling me I'd misunderstood what I'd seen. Maybe I had. Maybe the stress of the job was getting to me. Maybe 15 years of watching for threats had made me paranoid, seeing violence where there was just a heated negotiation. Hayes certainly didn't act like someone who just committed murder. If anything, he seemed more relaxed than usual. That night I couldn't sleep. Kept replaying those few seconds through the warehouse window. The blood, the crowbar, the way Hayes had looked at me. But Linda's words kept echoing too. Poor lighting. Weird angles. Maybe I really had misunderstood. The second warehouse meeting happened 2 days later. Different location, same story. Supply chain issue, Hayes said. Won't take long. This time I paid closer attention to everything. His body language, the route we took, the building itself. The place looked identical to the first one. Industrial district, no windows, 3 cars in the parking lot. Hayes told me to wait outside again, but this time I positioned myself where I could see through a different window. Better angle, better lighting. What I saw made my stomach drop. Hayes wasn't alone with suppliers. He was with the same 2 men from before, plus someone new, a woman in expensive clothes who looked terrified. She was tied to a chair, and Hayes was pacing in front of her like he was giving a presentation. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his gestures were animated, enthusiastic. Like he was enjoying himself. The woman was crying, shaking her head repeatedly. One of Hayes's men showed her something, looked like photos, and she started screaming behind the gag. That's when I saw the plastic sheeting on the floor. The kind you use when you don't want to leave evidence behind. The same setup they use in movies when someone's about to get murdered. This wasn't a business meeting. This wasn't even close. I backed away from the window, hands shaking. Had to call Linda again, had to report this. But when I reached for my phone, it buzzed with a text from her. How's everything going with Hayes today? Hope the assignment is staying routine. Staying routine. Like she knew exactly where we were and what we were doing. Like this was all part of some plan I wasn't aware of. I stared at that text for maybe 5 minutes, trying to figure out how Linda could know to ask about. Routine. On the exact day Hayes was doing whatever the hell he was doing in that warehouse. That's when it hit me. Premier Security hadn't assigned me to protect Hayes. They'd assigned me to watch him do this shit and keep my mouth shut about it. The third warehouse was where everything went to hell. Hayes seemed different that morning, more excited, almost giddy. He kept checking his watch and humming some tune I didn't recognize. When I asked about the day's schedule, he just smiled and said, "Today's special, Ryan. Really special." We drove to the same industrial district, but this warehouse was bigger. More cars in the parking lot, maybe 6 or 7. Hayes practically bounced out of the sedan when we arrived. "This one's important," he told me. "Major negotiation. Might take a while." I took my usual position outside, but something felt wrong. More wrong than usual. There were too many people inside for a business meeting, and I could hear voices through the walls, not just talking, but shouting, pleading. The kind of sounds that make your skin crawl. 20 minutes in, someone tried to run. A young guy, couldn't have been more than 25, burst through the side door like his ass was on fire. He was bloody, limping, and when he saw me, his eyes went wide with hope. "Please," he gasped. "Please help me. They're going to kill me." That's when I saw his face clearly. Really saw it. The same nose I used to see in the mirror before mine got broken in Afghanistan. The same stubborn chin our father had. The same green eyes that ran in our family. Danny. My little brother Danny, who I hadn't spoken to in 8 years because I was too busy building my fucking career to stay in touch with family. Danny, who'd gotten mixed up with the wrong crowd after I stopped returning his calls. Danny, who was standing there bleeding and begging me to save his life. "Ryan?" His voice cracked when he recognized me. "Jesus Christ, Ryan, what are you doing here?" I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Couldn't process that my brother, my baby brother, was the next person Hayes planned to torture and kill. The person I was supposed to let die because that was my job. That's when Hayes appeared in the doorway, still smiling that perfect smile. "Problem, Ryan?" he asked, looking between me and Danny. "Is this man bothering you?" Danny's face went white. He looked at Hayes, then at me, then back at Hayes. I could see the moment he understood. His own brother was working for the people who were about to murder him. "You son of a bitch," Danny whispered, and I didn't know if he was talking to Hayes or to me. Hayes pulled out a gun, casual as checking his phone. Well, this is awkward. Ryan, would you mind bringing your friend back inside? We weren't quite finished with our conversation. I had maybe 3 seconds to decide. Follow orders and watch my brother die, or throw away everything I built and probably die alongside him. 3 seconds to choose between my career and my blood. Looking back, it wasn't really a choice at all. I drew my weapon faster than I'd ever drawn it in 15 years of protection work. Had it aimed at Hayes' chest before he could blink. Put the gun down, Vincent. His smile faltered for the first time since I'd known him. Ryan, let's not do anything rash here. This is just business. Your brother got involved with some very bad people, and now there are consequences. That's not your fault. Put the gun down. Hayes looked genuinely confused, like he couldn't understand why I wasn't following the script. You're willing to throw away your career over this? Your reputation? Your life? For what? A junkie who owes money to dangerous people. That's when Danny spoke up, voice shaking but determined. I'm not a junkie anymore, Ryan. Been clean for 2 years. They grabbed me because I found out about their operation. I was trying to get evidence to the FBI. FBI. The word hit me like a sledgehammer. Danny wasn't some random victim. He was an informant. Which meant the people Hayes worked for knew that federal agents were closing in. Which meant I was probably already a dead man for drawing my weapon. Ryan, Hayes said softly, you have no idea how deep this goes. Premier Security, your handler Linda, half the contacts in your phone, we own all of them. You think you can just walk away from this? There's nowhere to run. I kept my gun steady, but my mind was racing. How long had I been working for criminals? How many people had died while I stood outside those warehouses, following orders? How many Dannys had I failed to save? Mike Torres, I said suddenly. Is Mike part of this too? Hayes' smile returned. Mike's been feeding us information about agency operations for 3 years. How do you think we always knew which bodyguards to request? Which ones would keep their mouths shut when things got messy? My partner. My friend. The guy who'd watched my back on a dozen assignments. He'd been selling me out the whole time, making sure I got assigned to the jobs where I'd witness atrocities and become complicit in them. That's when I heard the sirens. Distant, but getting closer. Danny must have seen the confusion on my face because he managed a weak smile. Told you I was working with the FBI. They've been tracking my phone this whole time. Hayes' expression went from confident to panicked in about 2 seconds. You little shit. You set us up. The warehouse behind him erupted in shouts and gunfire. His men were destroying evidence, probably trying to escape through the back exits. Hayes kept his gun pointed at Danny, but I could see him calculating his options. None of them were good. We can still work this out, Ryan, he said desperately. You help me get out of here. I'll make sure you're protected. New identity, clean start, more money than you've ever seen. I looked at my brother, beaten, bloody, but alive. Thought about all the brothers, sisters, parents, children who hadn't been as lucky. All the people who died while I collected my paycheck and told myself I was just doing my job. Go fuck yourself, Vincent. Everything happened fast after that. Hayes swung his gun toward me, but 15 years of training kicked in and I put 2 rounds center mass before he could pull the trigger. He dropped like a stone, and for a second the only sound was Danny's ragged breathing and the distant sirens getting louder. Jesus, Ryan, Danny whispered. You actually did it. I kept my weapon up, scanning for threats. The warehouse had gone quiet, too quiet. Hayes' men were either dead, gone, or waiting for us to make a move. The sirens were maybe 2 minutes out, but 2 minutes might as well be 2 hours when you're trapped in a kill zone. Can you move? I asked Danny. He nodded, trying to stand on shaky legs. They didn't break anything important. Just wanted information about what I'd told the FBI. He wiped blood from his mouth. Ryan, there's something else. The people they've killed, it's not just random. They're eliminating witnesses to a government contract fraud. Hayes was supposed to be the fall guy, but he got greedy and started his own side business. Government contracts. That explained the protection from Premier Security, the careful assignment of specific bodyguards, the way Linda had shut down my concerns. This wasn't just organized crime, this was organized crime with federal protection. My phone buzzed. Text from Linda. Situation compromised. Neutralize all witnesses and extract immediately. All witnesses. Including me. Including Danny. The FBI sirens weren't rescue, they were cleanup. Linda wasn't trying to protect the operation from outside interference. She was trying to protect it from us. Danny, we need to move. Now. I grabbed his arm and we started toward the back of the building, but gunfire erupted from inside the warehouse. Hayes's men weren't destroying evidence. They were setting up an ambush for whoever came through that front door. The FBI was walking into a trap, and they had no idea. There's a service tunnel, Danny said, pointing to a maintenance shed about 50 yards away. Leads to the storm drains. FBI knows about it. That's how I was supposed to escape if things went bad. We ran. Halfway to the shed, my phone rang. Linda's number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Ryan, where are you? Her voice was different now, harder, more urgent. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. You need to follow extraction protocol immediately. What extraction protocol? Linda? The one where you have me killed to cover up 15 years of war crimes? Silence. Then, you don't understand how this works, Ryan. You never did. This is bigger than you, bigger than your brother, bigger than those people in the warehouses. There are national security interests at stake. National security. The excuse they use when they want you to look the other way while they murder innocent people for money. I hung up and kept running. Behind us, the first FBI vehicles were pulling into the parking lot. Ahead of us was a tunnel that might lead to freedom, or might lead to another trap. But for the first time in 15 years, I knew exactly what I was running toward and what I was running from. The tunnel was exactly where Danny said it would be, but getting there meant crossing 50 yards of open ground while gunfire echoed from the warehouse. I could see muzzle flashes through the windows, Hayes's men making their last stand. Stay low, I told Danny as we reached the maintenance shed. The door was unlocked. Inside was a metal grate leading down into darkness. You first. Danny dropped into the tunnel, and I was about to follow when I heard a woman's voice screaming from inside the warehouse. Not one of Hayes's people, someone else. Someone still alive while bullets were flying. Ryan, come on. Danny called from below. Every instinct told me to drop down and run. But that scream sounded young, terrified, helpless. Like all the other voices I'd ignored while collecting my paycheck. There's someone still in there, I told Danny. We need to go. The FBI will handle it. The FBI who might be compromised. The FBI who had no idea what they were walking into because people like me had been keeping quiet for years. I made a choice. Maybe the stupidest choice of my life, but the first one in 15 years that felt right. Get downtown. Find Agent Sarah Kovac. She's the only one you can trust. I pulled out my phone and handed it to him. Video and audio from today, plus photos of the other locations. What are you doing? Something I should have done the first time I saw Hayes kill someone. I climbed back out and ran toward the warehouse. Through the side window, I could see 3 FBI agents pinned down, 2 of Hayes's men with automatic weapons, and in the back corner, a girl zip-tied to a chair. 19, maybe 20. Wrong place, wrong time. I kicked in the side door and put 3 rounds into the nearest shooter. The second one spun toward me, but I'd already moved. Hand-to-hand training took over. Disarm, control, neutralize. Federal agent. One of the FBI guys shouted, weapon on me. Bodyguard. Friendly. Civilian in the back. I cut the girl's restraints. She was crying, shaking, but alive. What's your name? Jessica Morrison. Morrison. My old surname before I changed everything to Carter. Had to be coincidence. You're safe now, Jessica. But even saying it, I knew nothing was over. This was just the beginning. 3 months later, I'm still looking over my shoulder. The FBI raid made the news for exactly 1 day before the story disappeared. Industrial accident. They called it. Gas leak explosion. No mention of bodies, torture chambers, or government contracts. No mention of Vincent Hayes or the people he killed. Agent Kovac turned out to be real, but she was reassigned to Montana the week after Danny gave her the evidence. Budget cuts. Her replacement told me when I tried to follow up. The new agent had never heard of any warehouse investigation. Danny's alive, but he's different now. Jumpy. Won't talk about what happened before I found him. We meet for coffee sometimes, but he always sits facing the door and never stays more than 20 minutes. Last time I saw him, he mentioned thinking about moving to Canada. Might be safer up there, he said. Jessica Morrison, turns out she really was family. Second cousin, something like that. Her grandmother was my father's sister. She was investigating Hayes for a college journalism project about corporate fraud. Wrong rabbit hole at the wrong time. She doesn't return my calls anymore. Premier Security dissolved quietly. Linda Martinez disappeared entirely, no forwarding address. No social media, like she never existed. Mike Torres got a job with a private military contractor. Send me a Christmas card with a picture of him and his family on a beach somewhere tropical. The message inside just said, "Thanks for understanding." Understanding what? That he sold me out for money? That he helped cover up murders? The card is still sitting on my kitchen table, unopened envelope next to it. Some nights I think about writing him back. Most nights I think about burning his fucking house down. I work construction now. Honest work, they say. But honest doesn't pay the bills like protecting killers used to. My apartment's a shithole, my car's 15 years old, and I can't afford health insurance. But at least when I look in the mirror, I see someone who tried to do the right thing. Eventually. The nightmares are getting worse though. Not about Hayes or the warehouses, about all the other assignments I didn't question. 15 years of protection details, and now I wonder how many of those clients were just like Vincent Hayes. How many people died while I stood outside, following orders, keeping my mouth shut. Sometimes I get emails from encrypted addresses. Photos of newspaper obituaries, missing person reports, unsolved murder cases. No message, just the pictures. Someone wants me to know the work continues. Someone wants me to remember that walking away doesn't mean it stops. They're right. It doesn't stop. And neither do I.